We are talking NUN, which was originally named Gaslight. This one directed by first-time feature director Chad Dossett. Now this was obviously retitled to take advantage of the Conjuring spin-off The Nun. Now if you're looking at the cover of this one, the Nun actual sleeve, it really is quite misleading. So the story actually focuses on a nun who is just going through having some experiences where she has having some doubts about her convictions. She's having lustful thoughts, to put it into her own mind, you know, drinking, that sort of thing. So she's basically having a kind of like a crisis of conscience. So she decides to go out of town, and on the way she pops into this kind of large storage facility, self-storage facility, but she gets trapped overnight there and can't find a way out, and starts hearing things basically, and she may well not be alone. As to what happens, you have to watch the movie to find out. And I'm being vague with this synopsis because there's not a lot happened in this film. Now I do think this film is trying to be clever in the fact that it's saying being lost in this storage facility after dark is a kind of metaphor for being lost in your own mind. That's what I think the movie is trying to get across here. But is it successful? Well, you'll have to be the judge of that one. I would say no. The first act of this movie is simply the build-up, showing you, basically getting introduced to the character. And I will say actress Julianna Robertson does a pretty good job here. This is one of those movies, most jumps where I feel the acting by our kind of female lead is pretty strong. And she does make a very believable character. It's also shot in a way which is not kind of like the campy kind of schlocky kind of B movies that you may have get. Now, as The Nun came out, I reviewed a couple of other kind of like low budget nun based horror films, and they were all kind of schlocky B movies. This one is a lot more of a straight kind of like movie. It's not, to be honest with you, it might fall under the kind of the horror banner, but it's really more of a kind of a thriller, to be honest. There's really not anything particularly horrific in this movie. I mean, there are some spooky scenes, but, you know, like I've said, the cover here is very misleading. But, so your first kind of act is the kind of getting to know you part. It's all kind of shot relatively realistically. You feel like you kind of got a good understanding about, you know, the character and what she's going through, etc. I mean, it seems like it's just a drama at this point. Then we kind of go into Act 2, and this is the section really where she is, you know, basically in this storage facility, and that purely is her wandering around in the dark. Now, having worked in a storage facility, I can tell you they have things like fire exits and also fire call points. If you were trapped in there, it's not going to be too much of a problem, let's be honest. And then basically the last act really is the threats, maybe, let's just call it that, and what's actually kind of going on. And there's a few kind of twists and turns. Like I've said, I have my theory about what I think this is. I think this is more of a kind of a metaphor for, you know, mental instability, and kind of it represents the kind of like the craziness of your own mind trying to kind of escape the confines of your own mind, so to speak. But there you go. So what do we think then? Well, the film that we've got ultimately is very dull, because there's not a huge amount of dialogue in it. There's so much time spent just on very kind of boring, nondescript things, wandering around a storage facility. Yeah, it's not for so much fun, 20 minutes doing the same thing. But even the first half, the first act of this movie, kind of the more dramatic side of it, again, there's not a lot there. There's just simply not a lot of story here. And then I've got to say, I don't think the last act is particularly well handled, and you know, it just seems like having twist for twist's sake, to be honest. Yes, that's where most of the kind of things happen. I just don't think they're particularly well. They're not particularly well made. I mean, like I said, the acting here is pretty good. There are some kind of like some atmospheric shots of, you know, this woman kind of walking around with her gaslight kind of torch or flashlight, I don't know what you call them in America. But we seem to have that there are lights in these storage facilities, and we seem to be using. Don't know why she isn't using them. So ultimately, It's just a very, very slow burn movie. It's not at all like a kind of Haunted Nun movie. It's just nothing to do with it. Obviously the title was just changed as an afterthought to try and cash in because it has a nun character in it. And they thought, oh, that will make people buy that. So forget that. If you're wanting a Conjuring style Haunted Nun movie, don't go with this one. So on its own merits, I would say, even though it is nothing to do with a kind of like the Conjuring kind of style movie, it still isn't a particularly interesting movie on its own merits. And although it has some fairly good acting, and although I feel it has some spooky moments, ultimately the film that we have simply isn't very interesting. Not enough happens, and I do think what does happen is poorly handled. So I can't really recommend this one, folks. So I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 10. Some solid performance, don't take away from that, but the story is just not very interesting and not well handled, which is big marks off. Have you seen this? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.